Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Combat Sports UK podcast episode 1. We're going to be talking some MMA today, and I'm very delighted to have with us, first of all, our creative writer, Alex Haynes. Alex, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And our lead on boxing and creative MMA writer, Nathan Shields. Nathan, how are you?
Much better now, mate. Rough weekend, standard christening weekend, but apart from that, I'm only just recovering, so I'm all good.
As it tends to go. So yeah, speaking about that, we've all woken up Sunday morning. We've taken the red pill from Morpheus, and we have to accept the new reality. That reality is that Sean Strickland is now the UFC middleweight champion after beating none other than the previously thought undefeatable Israel Adesanya. So what do we think here, Alex? What were you thinking when you saw that kind of Sunday morning kind of come through on the socials?
It was a shock, wasn't it? I had to pinch myself. I usually come out with all the cliches about how in MMA anything can happen, but I didn't this time. I gave Strickland no chance at all. I thought his style was kind of tailor-made for Adesanya. He proved everybody so wrong. I'm sure there'll be some that think Adesanya kind of underestimated him. Maybe that's the case, but I'm not so sure on that one. I think that someone like Izzy will always kind of prepare fully for a fight, no matter who it is, and do his job to the best of his ability. He could have had an off night, or maybe something else was going on there, but we shouldn't take anything away from the fact that the performance from Strickland was a brilliant one. He was brilliant on the night. He stuck to his game plan. He was patient, calm. He kept coming forward, pressuring Izzy. I thought he cut off the cage well. He beat Izzy using boxing fundamentals, pretty much. People will talk about the jab and the right hand, and rightly so, but I thought he was using his left hook well as well. I thought he had a nice left hook that he was landing. His teeps were quite impressive. I like the way he was lifting his leg up and giving Izzy something else to think about. And he just didn't let Izzy get into the fight at all. Adesanya couldn't get anything going. He was made to miss time and time again. Strickland's defense was on point. His blocks and his head movement, Izzy's feints they weren't working. Sean would bite on them occasionally, I thought, but not at the point or range where Adesanya could make the most of it. It was just an incredible performance from Strickland, the new middleweight champ, guys.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It is crazy. And I mean, it's good that you mentioned the boxing there. I mean, we've got Nathan with us, obviously, as well, who's a bit more savvy on the sweet science than I certainly am. Nathan, what did you notice? What did you think stood out from Strickland's performance from a boxing perspective, if you can?
Yeah, I mean, when I woke up and saw the result, because I obviously missed the event live. I thought I was still drunk, to be honest. There's no way I was expecting to wake up. I mean, we joked previously because I put an article out earlier on in the week saying that Sean Strickland was a genius, but I was alluding to getting himself into this position by maybe doing the UFC some favours, last-minute opponents, flying out to Australia, heading up some fight night cards. As far as the actual performance, there was nothing too spectacular. Everything was just solid. The fundamentals, the basics, the jab, the right hand, the left hook that Alex mentioned. For me, and I know we've kind of discussed this before, Taylor, previously, but Alex mentioned there about Izzy not underestimating Sean. And I actually disagree. I think not so much from an underestimating side as in he didn't show him enough respect. I think it's more a case of he's just come off the back of the Alex Pereira win, which was, the highlight of his career, really, apart from maybe winning the belt, because this was the guy that had previously beaten him on numerous occasions. And he just stopped him in the previous fight. It was a turnaround and went straight back in there. And to get that victory, to celebrate the way he did, I think he kind of peaked at that point, Izzy. And coming into a fight against Sean Strickland, where nobody was giving Strickland a chance at winning it, I think it was a lot easier for Izzy to take his eye off the ball. He's in his home part of the world, if you like. I know obviously we're talking Australia, not New Zealand, but as close to his backyard as we've been. And like throughout fight week, Sean Strickland was the hero. The Aussie fans were up on their feet. They were cheering him. They were laughing at the press conference. The whole fight week, to me, it just looked like this should have kind of been a celebration of Israel Adesanya. And for me, it just completely turned on its head, and you almost got to see a crowd that was really hoping that Strickland could pull off the upset, which was just insane.
Yeah, it's a real curious one for me in terms of where Strickland actually is in the division, because we've seen him drop fights. Jared Cannonier, who I think that's probably one of Izzy's weaker performances in terms of his title fight, was the Cannonier one. And obviously, Sean Strickland dropped to Alex Pereira as well. And then Alex Pereira came in and trained him for this fight to go up against Izzy. So you could almost say it's 5-1 Pereira at this point in MMA, right? In terms of the way that's going.
I'm
so
sure
Alex
Pereira will be saying that.
I'm sure he will, right? I'm sure he will come back down from middleweight, wins the belt of Strickland to get Izzy back again. So Alex, where do you kind of see the rise of Sean Strickland? Like, where has this come from? Do you think this has been something that's been in the making for a little while? You look at his performance against Abus Magomedov, not so long earlier this year, or do you think it is so much that Izzy maybe had an off night, too many training camps? Well, where do you think it's come from a Sean Strickland point of view, Alex?
Well, you just touched on Izzy and training camps there. I think there could be something to that. There could be a little bit of burnout going on. I mean, I said earlier that I don't want to take anything away from the Strickland performance, and that's true. But Adesanya is just so active all the time. Is camp after camp, fight after fight, and that deserves a lot of respect. But everyone needs to kind of time out. So maybe, that kind of played into did have an off night there, but there was probably a lot of people missing about Strickland, because we've talked about his fundamentals and the basics there, but maybe Adesanya isn't a big combination puncher. He doesn't put many combinations together. It's usually one or two shots that you'll pick carefully, and I think that you had trouble with Strickland's like jab and double jab, and he struggled with his combinations, so I think that the rise of Strickland, I mean, he's probably surprised himself in many aspects, because he lost to Cannonier. Obviously Izzy beat Cannonier. We could see another rematch there possibly down the line, but to go from Magomedov to Izzy and then to take the title off him, I think there was probably a lot that a lot of us were missing. Like, we didn't give him a chance, but we should look back and think, well, maybe I missed this here and there, and maybe Izzy does kind of struggle with those kind of shots, like the double jab, as I was just saying, and the 1-2 here and there. So, and the fact that Strickland's there wasn't a lot of times where Strickland was giving Adesanya a chance to counter either. I thought that he was going first quite well on the fence as well. So yeah, I think there's quite a lot of people eating crow and a lot that we missed. So yeah, it's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
I think there was maybe something to the tempo. I mean, Izzy's a sniper, and I think most people would expect that, or at least I was expecting that we were maybe talking a second, third round knockout. That's what I was envisaging for Adesanya. And I was just thinking, Strickland was going to plod forward. He was going to throw out that jab. He was going to throw that right hand. And Izzy would take his time, sort of sussing him out, get his timing right, and then pick him off. I think the problem was that Strickland never really gave him much of a chance. He just continuously plodded forward. The pace was relentless. He put a bit of a beat down on Izzy, if we're being completely honest. It wasn't necessarily a close fight. And Strickland's not the biggest puncher, but we've seen him get a finish in the last one there, and then he's obviously knocked Izzy down early doors in this fight as well. And yeah, I mean, like Alex said, then you got fight to fight, camp to camp, but weight cut to weight cut as well. And I actually thought Izzy looked terrible on the scales. I know obviously we saw Sean Strickland doing his post-cut media obligations, if you like, which I don't think anyone liked to see. He was clearly struggling there with the ESPN and just wanted to get off and rehydrate kind of thing. But I actually thought when Izzy was up there, I thought he looked really poor. I thought he looked like he'd really, really struggled. You know, I'm not. But again, like Alex said, I think the big thing is we don't take away from Sean Strickland, because nobody gave him a cat in hell's chance to win this fight and to walk away with the title, and he sits there now as the new UFC champion.
He does, and that's wild, really, really wild to think Sean Strickland is the new UFC champion by beating Israel Adesanya of all people. So just to wrap up this part of the conversation, right, Nathan, I'll throw back to you. But what would you like to see next for Sean Strickland? And then Alex, you can jump in after with what do you want to see next for Israel Adesanya. So Nathan, take it away.
I think there's a conversation to be had about what should be next and what will be next. Personally, I think that the next contender in line should be Dricus du Plessis. You know, to go out there and put a beat down on Robert Whittaker and get a finish like he did. Nobody does that to Robert Whittaker. You know what I mean? He's the man that should be next up for the title. But fighting is one thing. Talking and saying everything you need to say is the other one. And the narrative for Dricus has been this rivalry with Izzy, which, you know, he's not the champ now. So we've got Paulo Costa coming up against Khamzat Chimaev. You know, this sport's very much what have you done for me lately? And if Paulo Costa beats the brakes off Khamzat, you know, if Izzy was there, maybe you're talking saying, well, you know, we've seen him lose to Izzy before, but him and Sean Strickland is a fight that people would want to see. Likewise, if Khamzat goes out there and absolutely ragdolls Paulo Costa, you're telling me that Khamzat's not going to be the next man in line for a title shot? They're going to push that straight away. And I'll be honest, I mean, we'll push to Alex for what's next for Izzy, but I don't think there should be an immediate rematch for me. I think Izzy's been back to back to back to back to back. And I think, you know, he's had the loss in there to Jan stepping up. He's had the loss there to Alex Pereira. One of the reasons why I kind of transferred over a lot from boxing to MMA is because there's so many rematch clauses in boxing. There's so many obligations with different organizations where they're ordering immediate rematches for X, Y, and Z. And the reality of the situation is a rematch should happen if the fight warrants it. And we just saw Sean Strickland absolutely run away with the fight there against Izzy. Izzy's been a great champion, and the Pereira rematch was fine. You know, that was understandable. But this one here, for me, I'd like to see him go out and get another win, and maybe after taking 6 months off or so.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I was thinking as well. I don't believe that there should be an immediate rematch. Maybe it is time to go. I think Daniel Cormier was saying it as well. Like, maybe it is time to take a bit of time off. He's always on that grind, and as I said before, he deserves a lot of respect for that. And he's one of the best middleweights we've seen. But yeah, I don't believe he deserves the rematch right away. And also, we've got to consider that he's only won one of his last 3 title fights now. And that kind of record doesn't necessarily warrant another one. You know, he's just lost it. So maybe some time off. Does he come back to middleweight? I don't know. There's a possibility they could move up. I still feel like there's another fight with Pereira to be had somewhere along the line. So maybe he moves up and does that if he manages his body right. I think he was too small against Blachowicz. Blachowicz was so much bigger than him, and he struggled with. Of course, he struggled with that weight. Blachowicz got him down. It's pretty much game over. So if he manages his body right and he goes up in the right way, I think we could see him fight Pereira up there. Who knows? That could even be for a title as well. The way Pereira's going. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at with Izzy at the moment.
I think, again, when we were touching on immediate rematches and whatnot, you know, I saw Aljo I think he was on Twitter sort of saying, where's my immediate rematch? You know, you've got Charles Oliveira with the run that he was on, for example, lost the belt to Islam Makhachev and then had to go out there and get another win. This is the top of the UFC. You don't need to get immediate rematches unless the fight's close or there's a narrative to sell there. And for me, this one, Sean Strickland deserves his day in the sun and the chance to move on and defend against somebody else. We can't just keep, you know, rotating this round until he's the champion.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment as well. I think especially the way the division's stacking up. You mentioned some of the matchups Hamzat and Costa Dricus is out there as well. Robert Whittaker probably only needs one win. He probably only needs to beat someone in that top 5 who he hasn't beaten already, if there's anybody left. I mean, he's pretty much beaten everybody apart from Dricus du Plessis, right? Alex Pereira's obviously moved up. Yeah, might do Izzy again. But I don't see Izzy not doing a 5-round title fight really, unless is he going to go and do a 3-rounder? No, probably not. And you wouldn't want to see that with Robert Whittaker anyway. So continuing on the conversation kind of with 293 and Australian MMA as it is, I think I will speak to my disappointment that Tai Tuivasa lost. He's one of my favorite fighters, not only for his style, but just the way he conducts himself. The guy's an absolute character that I think we need in the game. Getting subbed like that with a submission, you really don't see very often. The Ezekiel choke. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw one of them. Alex, what did you think on the co-main event? Was it disappointing for you as it was kind of for me?
No, I wouldn't say it was. I do like Tuivasa, of course. I love his personality, and he always brings it, doesn't he? He's fun to watch. But I kind of wanted to start with we were talking about the kicks from Tuivasa. I mean, a lot was made about the kicks from Tui on Volkov, but I actually think Volkov checked quite a lot of them. He managed to come back and hit Tuivasa with big punches as well off of his kicks, and I like the way Volkov was using his lead leg as he usually does. He picks it up quickly, goes high with it, goes low, usually setting it up with punches. It was cool to see Volkov get that Ezekiel choke, and that was only I think that was his 4th submission in his career, which is mad to think about it. He gets a rare choke like that, and it's only his 4th. I think I'm right on that. But that's 3 on the bounce for Volkov now. So he looks like he's making another run at the title here, and will he actually be able to get that elusive title shot? We'll see.
Yeah, you think after I was there to watch him get absolutely starched by Tom Aspinall. Like it wasn't even close, that fight. So it just tells you kind of in the division anyway how it stacks up. And if Nathan, do you think Volkov is going to be one of those guys that's going to break through what seems to be, I think, the Aspinall, Gunn, Johnny Bones, kind of top 3, top 4? You probably throw in Jailton Almeida in there as well if he picks up the victory in his next fight. Do you think Volkov can break through?
I can't see it. I think to be honest, Volkov is what I would class as the best of the rest. He's so well rounded, and the reality of the situation. I mean, we look at Sergey Spivak, for example, and the run that he was on lately, and then I was listening to people all throughout the last couple of weeks talking about how this was a dangerous fight for Cyril Gane, and I never really saw it that way, because for me, Cyril Gane's a level above. All right, he was exposed for a lack of wrestling and grappling with John Jones. We saw the same thing with Francis Ngannou. It was no surprise, but he's a level above. Tom Aspinall is a level above. And when you look at somebody like Volkov, Ty's a slinger. He just throws everything he's got. He throws the kitchen sink. He's there to knock you out and put on a show, and he's a fan favourite. Everybody loves Tai Tuivasa, but he's never really rounded out that skill set. You know what you're getting with Tai. Okay, the kicks were being highlighted because it was something new to a certain extent, but we've once again seen him get taken down and submitted. So for me, I think the thing with Volkov is Volkov's on a 3-fight winning streak now, and is absolutely putting some pace together since the Aspinall loss. But does he step up and beat Aspinall in a rematch? I can't see it. Does he step up and beat Gane? I'd give him a slight more chance against Gane, but again, I don't see it. I think Gane's too quick, too elusive, too sharp. And yeah, I think Volkov's kind of in that position of the gatekeeper to sort of the top 5, top 4, top 3, around that sort of area. I think if you beat Volkov, you're going to be in with a chance at an eliminator, perhaps. And I think that's probably the situation he's in now. I think it's a very hard sell to sell an Aspinall rematch.
Yep.
Would I like to see him in there with Cyril Gane? That would be an interesting fight and a fun one to make again now. But it's, again, I don't see anything other than that. We're probably looking at Jones and Miocic riding off. Do I want to see him in there against Pavlovich? Absolutely not.
Yeah, Pavlovich, the other name I forgot to mention in that kind of quartet of top MMA heavyweights. So speaking of kind of top fighters from this card, Manel Cap and Felipe Dos Santos. Felipe Dos Santos, I know he lost the fight, but all credit to the guy. Like, he came in 21 years old, absolutely took the arena by storm. Even though you had Manel Cap on the microphone afterwards with Kai Kara France, that's all brilliant. You know, if you don't want to fight me, I'm going to go and choke out everyone in your gym. Fantastic. What a fight. What a fight that was. Like, I really enjoyed that fight, and it was a nice. Usually, sometimes you get that middle of the card fight that can be a little bit in and out sometimes, but that one, I thought it really, really raised the roof. What did you think of Cap's performance, Alex? What stood out for you from his performance?
Oh, this was a wild fight, wasn't it? Cap is fast. His hand speed is impressive, and he was lighting Dos Santos up with his counter punching. I thought Dos Santos was really struggling with his countering, but Dos Santos, he gave a really good account of himself here. You know, he was coming in on short notice. I believe he was meant to be on the Contender Series, and made his UFC debut here instead. Man, that guy has a chin on him. He was taking some huge shots from Cap, and like I said, Cap looks so sharp. He ate those shots. You know, he fought well and landed some lovely shots on Cap himself, Dos Santos. And I actually think if we saw this go to the ground a bit more, he might have had more of a chance with his jiu-jitsu. Either way, Dos Santos' stock has risen, and so has Cap's as well. I think that was a really solid performance from him, and he set up this fight with Kai Kara France really nicely. So I'm really excited to see that one.
And how do you see that going, Nathan? I mean, his only losses in the UFC are to Pantoja, who's the current champ, and Mateus Nicolau, who a lot of people are kind of putting up there as one of the top contenders. How do you see that fight with Kai Kara France playing out, and then Cap maybe future in the division?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Kai have a bit of a, you could almost call it a bad run of luck to a certain extent. You know, we saw him in there with Moreno, and he put a hell of an account on of himself. But before, obviously, there was those kicks kind of paid dividends there. And then last time out, a little bit unfortunate maybe to not get his hand raised there for me. So I think we're looking at two top contenders, whichever way you look at it. You know, when we talk about Brandon Moreno, for example, that fight with Pantoja was just insane, and we've seen Brandon Moreno turn things around and come back and get these victories against Figueiredo. So there's no doubt in my mind that at some point in the future, Brandon Moreno will hold that title again, because I'm just that high on him. But I think when you look at Kai Kara France and how competitive that fight was with Moreno, it shows the level that he's at. For Manel Cap, he's had fights against the top guys and also fallen a little bit short. And he's had a lot of fights fall off through opponents being injured, and he's had a bit of a tough, torrid time trying to force his way into those top spots in the rankings. And I think there's no other fight to make apart from Kai Kara France and Manel Cap in that division.
Yeah, I mean, the story's there, and it's a real narrative now, especially with the words. The press conference was tremendous. Manel Cap really kind of exploded on the scene, along with, well, obviously Sean Strickland was already on the scene, but them too. I mean, you know, him getting booed, yeah, of course, but you know, I think the Aussies like a fight, and I think they're really going to enjoy that. Kai Kara France was really getting after it as well, and that it leads in nicely to discuss a little bit about Australia, New Zealand, MMA in general. I mean, this card aside, you know, pretty much every single one of them won. Side to Ivata aside, is it in a really strong place? Like, is it one of those where we can say, hey, this might be the strongest region, maybe outside of the US, for MMA at the moment? Obviously, we had Mexico earlier this year with the 3 champs coming into the year. That's now kind of, you know, with Alexa Grosso to come up later this week, that's kind of unraveled a little bit. Where do we think, you know, Australian MMA is kind of in the world scene? Nathan, you go ahead. You start us off with that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. It's undeniable. I mean, we've got, we obviously the African champions have all fallen now. We had obviously trio, if you like, of Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and Francis Ngannou, and that swiftly moved on. We were coming up to UFC Noche, and again, we had a real opportunity there to maybe have a UFC event over in Mexico with, Moreno and Grasso and whatnot. And it's just Australian MMA. It's a bit of a weird one because when we talk about Izzy, we're talking New Zealand, obviously, but when we're talking about Australia and New Zealand as a combination for that sort of region, we're talking about Volk, we're talking about Kai Kara France, we're talking about Dan Hooker, we're talking about all these guys, including Izzy, and they're just fun fights, fun fighters. And I think it's a bit of a disappointing thing, really, I suppose, that we've had this card out in Australia there, and some of those big names haven't been able to feature. I think obviously Dan Hooker was coming off the injuries from his fight with Jalen Turner, and Volk's obviously, again, he's had the hand surgery, hasn't he? So he's looking at the quick turnaround to try and get back before the new year. But it's just a shame some of those bigger names didn't get to feature on this card.
Yeah, totally. I think it's in a really good place. I think Australia, New Zealand, MMA, they've got obviously the deals kind of in place. And Alex, who excites you of the Australian New Zealand fighters? Maybe coming off this card, who would you look back on that and say, you know what, I'm gonna go and watch them again? Is it Justin Tafa, or is it maybe Kai Kara France when he comes back? Who really jumped out at you as the standout of that kind of batch of fighters, so to speak?
Yeah, I love Kai Kara France. I love watching that guy. I think it's worth mentioning Olberg as well, Carlos Olberg. He seems to be on the rise. I mean, there's questions over his gas tank and things like that. I mean, he did look pretty strong though, and he got the submission late into the third round in his fight there. Tafa's KO was impressive, wasn't it? I mean, that was probably revenge for the eye pokes that he's endured. But yeah, I think definitely Olberg is one to watch, and Kara France when he comes back, I think we should all look forward to that. And obviously we've got JDM on the rise as well, Jack Della Maddalena. He's going to be right up there. So yeah, you're right. It's in a really good place right now, that region.
It really is. And you mentioned Jack Della Maddalena. We just talked about Alexa Grasso. That brings us to the end of the review for UFC 293. But stay tuned after the very short break. We're going to come back and talk about Noche UFC, Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko.
Watching Combat Sports UK.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports UK MMA podcast, episode 1. We are here to preview Noche UFC, Valentina Shevchenko versus the champ, Alexa Grasso. That's coming up this Saturday. Alex, we'll throw it to you straight away. What do you see for this fight? How do you see it going? Is Alexa Grasso going to continue, or is Valentina going to get the belt back?
Oh, it's tricky, isn't it? I'm looking forward to this one. It could go either way, as they're both such a high level. I think last time there was some really good decision making from Grasso. Her grappling game is improving, but I think it's more about the striking for her. She was winning on the feet in the last fight, but at times Shevchenko seemed to have her in a bit of trouble on the ground. Shevchenko she's 35 now. Does the loss last time around, kind of in the split decision against Santos before Grasso, mean that she's declining after that dominant reign at the top? I'm not really sure. They both like to counter strike, but I believe if Shevchenko can get this one to the ground and kind of work from there the majority of the time, I think she can win this one. I think she can kind of get this one back. I know Grasso won by submission last time, but that was after like a costly mistake on the feet from Shevchenko, and Grasso took advantage of that. I think Grasso will be more confident this time around, though. This time she's the champ. She knows that she can beat Valentina, but I'm sure that there'll be that new feeling, the kind of added pressure of being a champion. So there's lots to think about here.
It's true, and I think if you shout out to Jack Slack, actually, with the Jack Slack podcast, he's been calling Valentina out for years about the spinning stuff.
Yes,
and it finally came back to bite her in the backside. And Nathan, what impressed you from that first fight? Like, what did you notice? Did you pick up anything different to what Alex was saying there? Do you think there's any keys to victory we could look to in this next fight on Saturday night?
No, I mean, I'm not really taking too much out of the first fight. I thought Alexa was superb. I thought she put on a hell of a performance. Like Alex said, the boxing was crisp. The thing for me is, and the only concern I have for Alexa is we are talking about quite possibly the most talented female UFC star that we've ever seen, potentially. But when we look at that, and we look at Amanda Nunes, for example, as a comparison, we kind of saw Nunes's reign do the same sort of thing. It almost filtered out a little bit like she'd not lost interest. And again, I don't want to say was underestimating opponents because I don't necessarily think that's what it is. But you almost become comfortable at being champion and you win so many of them in a row, you start to forget that you can lose. And I think there was an element of, when we looked at Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, and we looked at that fight there, for example, I wouldn't like to make too much of a comparison, but we saw Nunes just not turn up there. This is slightly different because I actually thought Alexa Grasso did everything right. I don't think it was too much a case of Shevchenko was offbeat, but I think if anything was going to relight that fire underneath the bullet, then a loss to Alexa Grasso and the chance to come back and claim that belt back and show she's still the best female fighter in the UFC. I think we could be looking at a hell of a fight here. And like Alex touched on earlier on, I think it's a real 50-50 knock. And I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Listen to that. Relight the fire underneath the bullet. What wordsmithing that was there. Alex, what do you think Grasso has to do? Like you mentioned before there that you could see Shevchenko kind of looking to the ground exchanges. What do you think Alexa Grasso has to do to win this second fight?
I think more of the same on the feet as last time. If she can keep it on the feet, she can keep it there. She was giving Valentina a lot of problems with her combinations. And even when she was, she sometimes she would double up on a strike and miss, and then she would close the distance and go again and catch her. So she looked really good with her boxing. And I think if she can keep it there, that's the key. But I just hope that she's kind of been working on her takedown defense and her wrestling a little bit, because Valentina seemed to get her to the floor pretty easily. Most of our takedown attempts were successful. So I just thought she looked she did get up occasionally, but she looked a little bit lost at times, especially when Valentina had that crucifix position for a while, and she was she had her in her guard basically, and I just think that she struggled a bit there. So I think that if she can keep it on the feet, then she would have a much better chance. But Nathan, what are you feeling there?
Yeah, like I said, that just for me, I actually can't see a finish in this one. I think we could be in for 5 rounds of absolute chaos, if I'm honest. I just think that Alexa Grasso is a very worthy champion. I think she's a very talented fighter, and I think we're going to get a very different version of Valentina Shevchenko this time out. But if she's going to reclaim that belt, she's going to have to snatch it from Alexa Grasso because she's not going to let it go easily. I think we could be looking at an absolute war for 5 rounds here. I really do. I think Alexa Grasso's boxing was crisp. She was, when the fight was on the feet, she was the favoured fighter, if you like, and things were running smoothly in her direction. But again, Valentina, did she take the eye off the ball a little bit? Is she going to come back a bit sharper, a bit quicker, a bit more potence on her striking? We've seen her finish fights from everywhere, in essence. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a finish, but I'm just expecting a 5-round war that we can all look back on and say, what a hell of a fight that was.
Yeah, that would be incredible, wouldn't it, to have a 5-round war. I'm going to press you, boys. Predictions for the main event. Obviously, we've got a 5-round war. We'll find out which way Nathan's leaning. But Alex, you go first. What's your prediction? How's this going to go down?
Oh, you know what? I've been thinking about this one, and it as much as I like Alexa Grasso and I love her striking, I think that Valentina's going to do it. I think that she's going to continue with her takedowns and outwork her on the ground, and I think that Shevchenko's going to look back at the success that she had there last time, and I think she's going to go back to it, and I think it's going to be Shevchenko by decision.
Okay, and Nathan, Mexican Independence Day, celebrating their independence from all those years ago with the war with the US. You're talking about a war. Who's going to win that war? We're going to have a second Mexican Independence Day. What's going to go down?
I am really on the fence, but I will also make a prediction. And then I'll back the ball back to you, Taylor, because you've sat down and spoken directly with Alexa Grasso. So I already know which way you're going to go with this. But yeah, for me, I think the same as Alex. I think we get Andu. I think Valentina Shevchenko rises back to the top of the female pound for pound list and becomes the number one in the world again.
Straight in after a war. So 2 Valentinas. I'm going the way of Alexa Grasso. I'm going Viva Mexico. I've got skin in the game. I've got connections to Mexico. So I'm absolutely going for Alexa Grasso. I think we could actually see a bit of a clinic. I think we could see those improvements in the wrestling, in the takedown defense. You know, when you alluded to obviously our interview with her, when I spoke to her, she said Valentina felt her power and she did not like it. And we alluded to that earlier on in this little preview that Valentina did not enjoy the power of Grasso. So if she has ironed out that wrestling and ironed out the takedown defense and getting back up from the guard, as Alex said earlier, I think we could see a clinic on the feet. And I think we could see, you know, Shevchenko starting to look not human, but a little bit less than what she was. With that knockout versus Jessica Rai, the one that really, really stands out, I think, in her title reign is a few years ago now. Like, you know, fighting catches up with you. I think Amanda Nunes was very lucky to get out the way she did and how she did after the Juliana Pena first fight where she didn't turn up. I'm hoping we'll see Alexa Grasso. I'm hoping we'll see all the Mexicans in Las Vegas going absolutely mental. And yeah, I hope we see a war. I hope we see a good fight. And let's see what happens. And still for me. So, co-main event. We're very lucky to have you two gents on the podcast today because you have both written the articles about the co-main event. So I'm going to pit you against each other in terms of who's going to come out top in terms of the battle of Kevin Holland and Jack Della Maddalena. We'll start with the number 13 ranked Kevin Holland. Alex, what have you got to say about Kevin Holland from your article?
Well, first of all, this matchup really excites me. I can't wait for this one. Holland, he's kind of, it feels like he's found a home at 170 at welterweight. I think this is his weight class. So I like it when he's fighting here. He is big for the weight class, and I believe that he has more power than Jack Della Maddalena. So I think it comes down to can Holland deal with the pressure of Della Maddalena, and can Della Maddalena deal with Holland's power and unpredictability. I think Holland has the edge if it goes to the ground. His jiu-jitsu can be a problem. He does have a lot of submissions. He is a black belt. Including you got that Darce choke against Chiesa. That was really nice last time around. He looked great in that fight. JDM made some questionable decisions on the ground, I think, in his last fight against Hafez. That was a bit of a war as well. I think, it was a split decision. I think he deserved to take it in the end with his striking, but he made some interesting choices there. Like, I think he was trying to kind of latch onto a guillotine and shouldn't have done it. And overall, yeah, he did deserve to win that one. But I really think that this is a step up in competition for JDM. I think Holland is going to be a really tough fight for him. So it's fascinating nonetheless. So yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, it really is. Kevin Holland, like you said, coming off that really, really brilliant performance against Michael Chiesa. That puts him on a 1-fight streak. Jack Della Maddalena, I remember before the Basil Hafiz fight, everyone was singing his praises. He's the next destroyer in the division. He's coming for everybody. And it almost looked like to me in that fight, he had jet lag. Like, I looked at that fight and I thought, yeah, when I've been at work and I've had a bit of jet lag, that is what I would look like. Right, I would look like that performance. It wasn't quite working. It wasn't quite flowing. I personally think he was lucky to get the split decision. I think it could have gone either way. So Nathan, time for you to pick the bones out of that one. You put together an article for Jack. What are you thinking? How are you seeing this going for him?
Well, I will be putting together an article ahead of its release tomorrow. But yeah, one of us has been slacking. Alex is much more on his times than I am, so a rough weekend's left me a little bit laggy this week. So it will be ready, it will be out, but it's not there yet. But yeah, I think something we need to remember when we're talking about Jack Della Maddalena's last fight, that wasn't the fight that he was supposed to be having. He was scheduled in before that, and we hear fighters talking all the time about extended camps. You know, when a fight falls off and they get a new date a few weeks later on, they sort of go, well, you know, I've done a 12 or 14 week camp for this one. I normally only do an 8 or a 10 week camp. And I think there was an element of that there. Jack didn't necessarily look himself, but I think, I'll be honest, I'm actually leaning towards Kevin Holland in this fight. I'll be making an argument when I put the article together for Jack Della Maddalena, and I think I can put a solid one together because Jack's boxing is crisp. I think he hits hard. When you look at Jack Della Maddalena, UFC fighters or MMA fighters as a whole, they have a different style of boxing, whereas Jack's is that of a boxer. He fights, he throws punches like a boxer. He doesn't throw them like an MMA fighter. And I think that's why he catches so many people out. He's so crisp, he's so sharp, he's so fast. I actually think that the Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko fight is going to be an absolute war, but I'm picking this for my fight of the night. I think we could be in for something really, really special here. I think I can potentially see a stoppage win for Kevin Holland, but I wouldn't even be surprised to see Jack Della Maddalena push and get something and maybe even stop Kevin Holland. I really believe that these two are just going to throw down. You know, Kevin Holland loves a fight. He's going to talk shit the whole time he's in there. He's kind of dialed that down a little bit, but I think this is the kind of fight where the two are just going to throw down, and I think that will bring out that entertainer in Kevin Holland that will say, come on, let's go. The crowd's going to be on the feet. It's going to be an absolute tear up, and I'm expecting something really special from this one.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the announcement video he did for this fight. He did an announcement video. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, he's in a taco truck. Yeah. He's an absolute entertainer. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, when was the last time he was finished? Would it have been Khamzat, the Khamzat fight, right?
I think it was the Khamzat fight.
It was the Khamzat fight. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, when it was finished, he got destroyed by Khamzat in the first round, didn't he? And didn't have much of a chance. But it was nice to see against Chiesa that, you know, Chiesa's known as a wrestler too, and his takedown defense in that fight. I know the fight was really short, but his takedown defense in that fight was really impressive. Chiesa tried to get him down multiple times, and Holland wasn't having it. So he did really well there. And to touch on the kind of the trash talking as well, like you just said, Nathan, he has toned that down a bit. I think he's dialed in now. He's focused. I think he has goals, and he's going for them. And he's a talented guy with a diverse range of striking, and can't sleep on him on the ground as well. You know, I actually think he's going to get it done as well. And as much as I think that JDM is on the up, I think I could see Holland kind of seeing this one out through a decision or maybe even a finish.
Okay, so Alex, we're going with a Kevin Holland win, yeah?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Nathan, the same?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go for a Kevin Holland stoppage in the final round.
Kevin Holland stoppage in the final round. I'm going to make it a hat-trick. Sorry, Jack. I'm going to make it a hat-trick. I can see Kevin Holland getting the victory as well. I don't know if I'm brave enough to say a stoppage. I think JDM's got the chin, and I think he'll survive on the ground if it goes there. Kevin Holland's wily, and he's got a few things up his sleeve, but I think his ego might just come back to bite him again, similar to the Stephen Thompson fight. I think his ego might come back and might say, okay, I want to stand with you. And I think he's going to stand with him and try and go for it a little bit. And I think this time it'll just about come out on top. I think he'll be a bit too elusive for JDM. But either way, I totally agree, Nathan. I think that's got fight of the night written all over. Another fight that will be incredibly exciting, and just to touch on here, is Raul Rosas Jr. coming back against Terrence Mitchell. Last time out, he lost his O quite convincingly against Christian Rodriguez. I think we can say. What are our thoughts on young Raul Rosas Jr., Alex?
Well, he's obviously a talent, isn't he? And I can imagine that he was kind of having his way with certain guys at his gym. He was coming through the ranks. He looked really good in the Contender Series. And the thing is, I just think that he might be a bit too young. I think he's 18, isn't he? And I think that it was a really big wake up call for him in the last fight. He was very confident and outspoken, but I think as a professional fighter, you've got to have that crazy confidence. But there's a line between the confidence and delusion, and he was saying delusional things. I thought he's obviously a talented guy, but it's going to take a lot more than just stepping in the octagon with the best guys in the world and expect to just take their back and for it to be over. It was a wake up call for him last time, and he did take a beating. So I think it would have been better for him to kind of work his way up a little bit more on the regional scene, not necessarily step into the UFC so early. So that's where I'm kind of at on Rosas Jr. at the moment. What are you thinking, Nathan?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think he's probably too young to be fighting at this stage. I mean, when we talk about the UFC, we're talking about the elite, and we're talking about the highest level of competition. And for me, Raul Rosas Jr. is just not there yet. He's got talent. He may get there one day. He may be at that level, but he also can't be given easy knocks. This is the Champions League of the sport. So for me, he needs to kind of grow up overnight in order to be able to claim his place here. I can't remember who said it at the time, but somebody kind of referred to him as young, dumb, full of cum. And I think that was, surrounding some of the things that he'd said. Talking about how he'd walk through the division and he could be champion now if he had the chance. And, like Alex said, all fighters need that level of confidence, but there also has to be a bit of a reality check and a little bit of, maybe I'm not quite there yet. And I think we need to see something from Rosas Jr. to say, do you know what, Christian Rodriguez old man me last time out. He just showed me what a real well-rounded fighter can kind of do. And I've got to work on this stand-up. I've got to develop my skill set some more. I've got to maybe drop down. I mean, we saw, even when you look at somebody's experience as Anthony Smith, a few years ago, Anthony Smith hit a stage where he just couldn't get a win and had to drop down in the rankings and fight, or someone ranked fighters and say, do you know what, I just need to drop down, build myself back up. And I think that's what we need to see here. We need to see him fighting fringe UFC fighters. I would refer to them as, people that have made it into the organization and are talented kids, but aren't necessarily going to reach the highest of highs, and let him develop that skill set. The one thing I don't want to see happen with him is, he goes in there, he gets another defeat this weekend and maybe another one next time out, for example, and then he gets caught. I think that's probably something that could very well happen. And it might be one of those that ends up being the best thing for him, and we see him back in the UFC one day. He might go and apply his trade elsewhere, and then we might see him back. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he comes in with a different mentality this week or not.
It will be. And Terence Mitchell, coming off his UFC debut, was a first-round loss, but he's exciting. Going back to 2014, he'd had all wins, all by finish as well. First round, second round, rear naked choke, punches, head kick, a real variation of finishes that this guy's had. He's one to look at. I'll open it up to you, lad, for the last kind of thoughts on this card. Are there any other fights that stand out to you? Any individuals you're looking at and saying, okay, that could be a sleeper of a fight on there? Nathan, we'll start with you, and then Alex, you can jump in as well with your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Josh Friends coming up against Kopylov, and for me, that was one that kind of jumped off the card a little bit, as in saying, this could be a decent knock. We saw Josh Friends last month get the win in there against Jamie Pickett, and I thought he looked brilliant. And I listened to him after the fight, and he said, I'm a little bit disappointed in my performance and didn't feel like I did X, Y, and Z. And I thought, okay, well, if he feels like that wasn't him at his best, then I'd like to see what he does this time out. So, that one there against Kopylov could be an interesting fight. I mean, Josh Friend last time out was very forcing against the fence, using his weight, throwing some elbows, throwing some knees up in the clinch, and it was an impressive victory. But yeah, I think that one could stand out as being a good fight. It might be a bit more of a technical fight, but I think it'll be an enjoyable one for the hardcores at least.
Alex, what are your thoughts? What's jumping out to you? Anything else?
I think it'll be quite an interesting one with Tracy Cortez and Jasmine Judah Jasudavicius. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Easy for me to.
There's easier names in the UFC.
Yeah, but I think that'll be a good one. I believe that Tracy Cortez is on like a 10-fight win streak now, maybe 4 in the UFC. I can't remember exactly, but she looks like she's one to watch. And Jasudavicius is 9-2. She's looking pretty good as well. So I think that'll be worth a watch. It'll be an interesting one. One of those where it's tough to call at this stage, but keep your eye on that one, especially Tracy Cortez.
Yeah, that was one. Jasmine Jasudavicius that jumped out at me as well. She just beat Miranda Maverick, who's no joke. She's been a pretty serious kind of contender around the division for a little while. So a lot to look forward to. That is Noche UFC coming up this Saturday in the UK on TNT Sports, I believe. We're back to the 3 a.m. Start time for the main card. So check it out. Let us know what you think, kind of your predictions and everything in the comments. What also to look forward to this weekend is Octagon 46 going down in Frankfurt. We have people on the ground. Myself and Patrick McQuarrie are going to be going down to provide media updates from Octagon 46, which is Jacinta Austin versus Katerina Delizda, plus the €1 Million Tipster semi-finals. And it's also, I believe, the debut of Octagon on Channel 4, which is a massive deal and a massive broadcast partner for Octagon in the UK, running up to the November show in Manchester. We've also got on the YouTube channel exclusive interviews with Alexa Grasso, Jacinta Austin, Andres Michailidis, and Nico Samsonidze. Obviously, Grasso from the UFC this weekend, and the other 3 are from Octagon. So just to wrap up, gentlemen, please let us know where the lovely people can follow you. What are your names on the socials? Go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
Sure. On Instagram, I am at punching_above, and most of what you'll see on there is kind of snippets of interviews that I've done, maybe a few of the articles that I've done as well. And you'll also find me on Twitter on Alex_Haynes905. And there I pretty much just push my articles there and a lot of other stuff from Combat Sports UK. So yeah, that's me.
You two are absolutely flawless. So I can be found at it's Nathan T. Shields MMA on Instagram and Facebook, and it's at Nathan T. Shields on Twitter. So yeah, that's they're my accounts freshly set up for the Combat Sports UK team. Check out the websites and whatnot. We're flying out with loads of content, loads of reviews for the upcoming fights. So Taylor, you might want to introduce yourself now since you missed it at the start of the pod.
I know, yeah, just overwhelmed with excitement to start the pod. Yeah, Taylor Collard.
Needs no introduction. Needs no introduction.
That's it.
Who's that random voice going on in the background there? Yeah, at Tay Cold, COLLD on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, I tend to push out the interviews and articles. And speaking of articles, we do have the deep dives on Noche UFC, the co-main event, and the main event coming out Wednesday. So this will be the day the podcast is released, and Thursday. So look out for those. Give those a read on the website. Don't forget, please follow Combat Sports UK, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube to keep up to date with everything, both regional and European, and UFC, obviously. And lots to come from the new and improved boxing section ran by Nathan, and a shout out also to Jared Magunaby heading up that one. Keep your ears peeled for much more exciting content. So you'll be joined next week by either of the 3 of us. There'll be 2 of us on next week. So this is a special treat having the 3 of us on today. I'd like to thank you both, Nathan, Alex. Thank you both for your time this evening.
Yeah,
and we look forward to hearing from you very soon. Keep an eye out for articles. Cheers, everybody. Have a great week. Enjoy the fights.
Goodbye.
Cheers.